My game made $490 since January 2024, so the last 6 months, $490. But this is not one of those videos talking about how little or how low my revenue was for a released game, because even though this game got released in January, it was January 2013. So this game is 11 years old, but the last 6 months it still made $489. That's what this video is going to be about. Hey, I'm Pascal from Orangepixel. Welcome to this week's video. So the topic for this video came from a comment on, well, I had various comments over the last couple of months. People using these Steam-like algorithm spy database thing websites where you type in the name of a game and you get a guesstimate of how many sales they had and how much money they made. So every now and then I get new subscribers, or they bump into one of my videos, they check out my games, they notice there's very low amounts there for certain Steam games, and they wonder if I'm full of BS or if how it works and how I actually make a living from games. So in this video I want to explain a little bit of the things you're missing, a lot of things you're not looking at, after the intro. So the game is Gunslugs and it did pretty well in 11 years, and even the last 6 months it did an amazing amount of dollars, pretty much because of a weird event, and I'm gonna get into that in a little bit later in the video because it's fun, it's interesting, very interesting. So stay tuned or skip ahead and find it, but whatever. On Steam, Gunslugs did, and I have to get my spreadsheet for this. On Steam, the game did $89 in the last 6 months. Discounts, sales, like sell it for very cheap. Overall on Steam, lifetime sales is $2,900, a little under $3,000. I know, that's not a lot. Okay, so let's talk about Gunslugs. This game originally was developed in 2012, released on January 13. It took me about 8 months, but during those 8 months I also finished off another game, Meganoid 2, and released that one. So there was some time in between there. I like to work on multiple games, have been doing that for over decades now, so that works for me. When it got released in January, it first got released on iOS and Android because mobile was my business. I wasn't releasing PC games until 2015, I think. That was my first game heading Steam, and from there on I started focusing more and more on PC games and my new games. Right now, Gauntlet of Power launching Steam Next Fest next week, and then launching after that, so check that one out, it's in the description below. That's gonna be released on PC first, as did my last previous games, and Regulated City later this year. So PC is now my main focus, alongside console, but also still mobile. And back in those days, mobile was my only thing. So there was no PC release, there was only iOS, Android, and I think BlackBerry even then. They had something new, Ouya, and it has been released on so many platforms since. It has been released on, and I probably show up a little list over here on the screen now. PS Vita, Ouya, probably don't have the numbers for things like GameStick, Fire TV from Amazon, Firefox OS, it's been released on that. I released one copy on Chrome Store. Let me get my spreadsheet. Of course, we released a Switch version 2 years ago, around that time. And I have an Atari VCS version, current Atari, which was a Kickstarter device. Been selling games on there as well. It's been interesting. The iArcade, it's now gone. I think it existed for only like 2 years, maybe, something like that. But I released a bunch of games on there, including Gunslugs. And every now and then, Gunslugs gets released on a new platform. Total revenue Gunslugs made in those 11 years is roughly $52,000. This is very roughly, because I don't have all the stats and numbers of all these years and of consoles that aren't around anymore. I dig through my emails to find the best reports I could find and the best amount of amount of sales and revenue it made, but it's very hard. It could be, it's probably a little higher, because I didn't even find or include any of the Nintendo 3DS version, which also got released. And it made a lot more money on PS Vita, but that was through a deal with Sony and a third party doing the porting. I think there's at least like 30,000 extra dollars somewhere on somebody else's spreadsheet. Yeah, it was a little bit of a weird contract and agreement, and I slipped up there. I haven't done those bad deals since, but it was just cool to have a game on a PlayStation Vita, and Heroes of Loot also went there, and same for 3DS version. That was a better deal and more fair and normal. It didn't do a lot on the 3DS as it did on Vita, but on PS Vita we had Sony backing it, so they really pushed it, which helped a lot. It did a lot more money on there as well. Then some weird and interesting stats here and there. A mobile bundle is an interesting one. Back in those days, they also tried mobile bundles for Android games. It did nice numbers. It wasn't amazing, but it was fun to have that game in there and go along with a bunch of other games and stuff like that. Of course, my Android alternate markets. Talked about it many times in the videos. Can't specifically tell you who or what or where or when or how to contact or get there. You need contacts in the right position, and that's just the advantage of being in the industry for so long. I have a lot of contacts everywhere. On there it did pretty good numbers. I mean 10k compared to the normal Android store, which is 14k. And I don't think that doesn't include the free version. I also had a free version for Gunslugs with advertising in there. Not sure how much that made. It won't be that high, but it could easily be 4,000 extra here and there over the years. So, and that's pretty much how all these things stack up. Now, in the last 6 months, the game still made almost $500, which is insane for a game this old. Most of that, and this is the interesting stuff, or well, not most of it, but a good share of that. Part of it was Switch, because there's still a big audience there, and if I do discounts, I pick up new people playing my game. But the more interesting one is the Mega Drive, Sega Mega Drive, or for the Americans, the Sega Genesis. So this came about in a random way. I know like I said, I know a lot of people. This guy is pretty much retired from game development, has been in the industry for a long time. He used to do stuff for these old consoles. Now he wanted to create a tool set. He needed graphics and an interesting game. Gunslugs was born. He also did a Heroes of Loot copy. Gunslugs is also physically available. We have found a publisher to publish cartridges for the Sega Mega Drive, so you can have this game in your retro collection. It should be available. I've tried to find a link and put it in the description below. If you have a Mega Drive, check it out. Gunslugs just released on the Mega Drive, which is crazy. Still want to have a C64 version, Commodore 64. If anybody wants to try the hands on that, go for it, let me know. And that's pretty much how this game continues to just be alive. So now let's get to the point of this video, the long tail. I think on Discord somebody asked about that as well as a topic for videos. Show a little bit about how a long tail for sales revenue works and how it can look, and this is pretty much it. The game doesn't sell $400 or $500 every half year. Every now and then it sells a copy here and there. But for a game that's this old, I didn't really expect it to still be selling, but that's how I keep it updated. I make sure it's still working on PC. I try to keep it updated on Android and iOS. It's not on iOS right now. I still have to find time and actually update it, because Apple removes stuff when it doesn't get updated for a long time. So it's gone from iOS, but it's coming back hopefully pretty soon if I find some time for that. If I find a new platform I can push it to, I will. And this is just one game. This is Gunslugs. I have about 14 or 15 games that I try to keep alive and active, and whenever I can push them either in discounts, sales, special events, or different new platforms. So with 15 games all still making money, even though it's a small amount, I think at the end of the year it still amounts up to 10 to 20k for all these released available games, and that's pretty impressive. And that's also why I find it so frustrating if I see developers really focus on their current upcoming game and completely ignore the stuff they already released, because, well, it's not selling anymore, I'm not looking at it anymore, I'm focusing on new stuff. It's also about building your brand and your followers and your fans. So if people notice that you keep updating your games, they will take a chance on your next game as well, because they figure, well, if there's something wrong, I'm pretty sure this developer will fix it. He's not just dumping a new game and abandoning it. He's actually maintaining it and making sure the game actually plays, and if there are bugs, they will get fixed. And I think that's very important, and a thing that a lot of game developers are completely ignoring, as they're just too focused on their next and current project and not on building a brand and building something long term. So while I'm still wrapping up the Gauntlet of Power and doing all the PR and promotion for that, as it launches within 2 weeks, again, check it out in the description below. Wishlist if you haven't already. We're going pretty well on the wishlist, going towards my goals and targets. So it's going decent, but it could always go better. But while I'm doing that, I'm also tinkering on my older games here and there, updating certain things, pushed updates for Residual, and Ashworld on Android is, I think, already updated, or I'm about to update it because it also needed some changes. So I'm still every now and then in between these updating and maintaining my old games, because as long as they are still out there, they're still selling copies and it's still attracting new players towards the Orangepixel brand and the Orangepixel universe. And it's pretty much the best way to advertise yourself as a game developer, having games out there that actually still run and work and are playable. And so yeah, Steam is very important, but it's not the only place and the only thing you should focus on as a game developer. Right now I'm in the middle of the PR for my own game, so I see a lot of other people and other game developers trying to promote their game. It's all about the wish list for Steam, and they're completely ignoring everything else. Make sure to check out itch.io, make sure to check the Humble store and all these other stores that are out there, but also make sure and check if you can maybe find a way to get your game onto other platforms. Don't just ignore it because it's gonna be like a month of extra work trying to find and how to make it work. A month to release that same game on a completely different platform is gonna be worth it money-wise. Because honestly, it's not just about the sales you get from it at that point. It's about having your brand and your game on a completely different market and a new area. For example, I know a couple of developers who are releasing solely on Steam. They have games that fit very well on mobile devices, but they refuse to find and see how they can make that work. If your game is going to be on mobile and you reach a mobile audience, maybe just a few hundred, those 100 gamers at some point might turn into PC gamers. I myself played a lot of games on mobile, but I now play my games mostly on PC or on Steam Deck or on my PlayStation. So at some point these gamers might get a different lifestyle and they grow and they get older and they get different spare time and free time and they play their games differently. You want them to know your brand and your games. And it's gonna be very rare to release on a new platform and not get the revenue from just the time it took to get it up and running there. It might be like a couple of weeks work. On your first game it could be a little bit longer, just finding out how the tech works and how to make it and how to set it up so that it all builds and compiles and that you can actually release. But on the next game it's going to be easier, the next game easier, until it's just a couple of weeks work and you actually figure out that while you're developing an interface, for example, you know how to make sure it's gonna have touch control. It can work with the mouse, it can work with a gamepad, keyboard. You'll figure those things out in your workflow and it will be easier to release on different platforms. But you just have to do it. And if that's not an option, there's always people you can work with to release on other platforms. My games on Switch and Atari and hopefully future Xbox and PlayStation, they are being ported by my good buddy Serious Lion on the Discord, as I've mentioned many times on this channel. Now, it's technically not impossible for myself to do it, but it was a lot easier for me to have somebody else figure it out and do it. So now we just work together on these things. Of course, I lose revenue because 50% goes to him. But it's worth it, and it has been worth it because my brand, Orangepixel, my games are out there and people will be recognizing them. If they buy it on PC and then decide they want to play games on the Switch, they will repurchase it on the Switch, and it's a win-win situation for both me and Serious Lion. And if you so if you cannot do the technical stuff yourself, find someone you can work with. There are many companies out there. There are even publishers out there that just pick up games and port it within no time. They have whole frameworks and engines built for those purposes, so they can do it pretty quickly. And it's a win-win situation. Your game and your brand will be out there. More people will know about it. More people will read about it. And revenue on different platforms will increase. And hopefully your long tail, because that's what this video was about, the long tail will become longer and longer. And if you have like 10, 15 games with very long tails, it's a lot of tail you're getting. Anyway, I think that should end the video pretty much. I'm gonna be back into PR for Heroes of Loot Gauntlet of Power. Make sure, please to check it in Next Fest next week, June the 10th. Yeah, I think next week, coming Monday, I think, after this video went live. And it launches on the 17th, pretty much directly after or at the last day of Next Fest, which is a little bit of a gamble, but I hope it all pays out. And finally, if you're gonna get the game, please leave a review. The faster I can get to 10 or 15 reviews on Steam, the better the Steam algorithm will do its thing, and my game will get more people, and I'll be able to continue making these videos and my next couple of games, which is pretty much my main goal. For now, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, comment below if you have more questions about these things, about the long tail, about revenue splits, about whatever. Comment below or on the Discord, and I will see you next week when Gauntlet of Power is in the Next Fest. Not sure if I mentioned that. I think I did. If I didn't, Gauntlet of Power will be in Next Fest coming week. See you then. Bye.